Islands are evolutionary engines that create biodiversity. We're also at the cutting edge of all of the issues, whether it's invasive species, climate change, sea level rise, overdevelopment. We're at the cutting edge. We have no choice but to set the example for the world, to develop cutting edge examples. And so it has totally exceeded all of my expectations. It has been such an exciting time these past 10 days. And when the world leaves, what will be left behind is a legacy of conservation, a culture of conservation that's much deeper, much broader, and much more powerful than when the world convened here 10 days ago. Thank you, Governor, for helping to make that happen. And now another champion, Suzanne Case, the Director of the Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Chipper and Governor. And I want to reiterate our thanks to the Hawaii State Legislature and the private funders and all of the staff and volunteers for really making this possible, for bringing it to life so brilliantly, and for the media who helped get many, many stories out about conservation in Hawaii and around the planet. And it's been an extraordinary experience for all of us. And I think we knew we could put on a great World Conservation Congress. It's the Olympics of conservation, and we carried a torch, and we collectively were able to carry it forward. The challenge was, are we going to make it something that's really worth doing? And I think we've all shown and participated in a great success here and a great sail plan into the future. Governor Ige's Sustainable Hawaii Initiative charts the course for us for forests and marine and invasive species and climate change and local energy and local food. So we've got our marching orders going forward, and we set clear goals, and we're going to be able to move forward on those now. To make those, to take those forward, we had so many opportunities during the Congress to take on new conservation initiatives and to learn about them. I mean, we started out the Congress with President Obama announcing the expansion of Papahanau Mokuakea and being able to go up to Midway and have a talk about climate change right from there, just at the beginning of the Congress. And that's a huge step forward for conservation of our oceans. Senator Schatz and the Department of Interior announced a $500,000 commitment to research and field pilots in control of rapid ohia death, hugely important for us. The DLNR was able to launch our Hoala Loko'ia fish pond restoration guidebook, which streamlines restoration of fish ponds and will help us with our conservation and local food efforts. We had groups like Ealapu, put on by KUA, hosted by KUA, and bringing together indigenous leaders from over 30 countries together for several days to meet and exchange ideas about how to care for our resources. We were able to showcase Hawaii's new wildlife trafficking law in an arena where you can look at local efforts and global efforts. You can go to presentations and workshops about what is happening with these wildlife, in Africa, in the oceans, where they're being harmed, and then you can look at the market areas where we are, that we're in the market end of it, and took these great efforts to shut down our market from Hawaii's side. And we were able to reach out to the public about restricting use of sunscreen that contains oxybenzone that's harming our reefs. And we were able to reach out on ways to enjoy wildlife in the oceans without harming them by maintaining distances from turtles and monk seals and rays and dolphins. And then we were able to learn new tools, like potential new tools for mosquito control, which is going to tremendously help both people and our forest birds. So that kind of thing is very exciting, and to be able to exchange ideas with world leaders on this, people from around the world, and our students here, it's been a tremendous step forward. So we're very, very happy to be able to have enjoyed this Congress together and to be able to really take our place in this exchange of ideas locally and globally around the world. So thank you all for your great efforts in it.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody? And if you would, again, please come up to one of the microphones and identify yourself and your affiliation. Thank you.
Henry Curtis, Ililani Media, local blogger. What percentage of the watershed is currently protected?
I think we've got about 150,000 acres roughly in effective conservation. What's the actual number? Is that it? 127,000, 15% of our best forests under effective management.
Could I comment on that as well? Our previous administration had a goal of doubling the amount of protected watershed from 10 to 20%. Governor Ige just upped that game to his goal is to protect up to 30%. That's the kind of progress we need in our state in order to truly make a difference. And I think I made this point earlier, but I think it's very important. Conservation will never succeed if it's subject to the political winds that blow. It needs to be able to survive successfully from administration to administration. It's been awesome to see what Governor Ige is doing.
Yes, sir.
Andrew Heath and Seaweed Cottrell with Solar Hydrogen. We were aware of the importance of climate change and 100% renewables being a goal towards eliminating ocean acidification. Is there any way for the private sector to engage the government of Hawaii to help accelerate that forward?
Well, we do have, a couple of accelerators that are focused in renewable energy and other kinds of technology as a way to, identify the best new ideas and see how we can support entrepreneurs and then hopefully help them be able to prove concepts and effectiveness, and then most importantly, get to a position where they could actually implement and commercialize the ideas. So I do think that it's trying to work at both ends of the scale. As you know, Hawaii does lead the nation in the penetration of PV and a number of other areas, which truly creates the opportunities for businesses to learn from the experience in Hawaii that would impact other communities as they drive to higher penetrations. And, as a practical reality, you already see the island of Kauai, during the middays are getting close to 97% renewable. And the Big Island is already, I think, at over 40%. So, I think as you look at the independent grids, the opportunity for entrepreneurs and private sector is to really be helping us as we develop the plans on moving forward. I think that we're helping the new startups and with the accelerators at the same time, looking at how we can engage the private sector as we get higher and higher penetrations of renewable.
Thank you.
Hi, Melissa Price, University of Hawaii at Manoa. I'm wondering if you can speak to funding not just for protection of our native forests and our reefs, but also to scaling up restoration, particularly on former agricultural lands, as well as cattle grazed areas. Thank you.
Well, I really don't have any specific in response. We certainly can take the question back. I do know that Scott Enright is working on a number of initiatives relating to food production and scaling in that area. And so we definitely can take that question back and try and get you a more coherent answer.
I can't speak at all to funding because I'm a nonprofit and we seek funding, don't dish it out. But we're very involved with a project to utilize breadfruit as a new wedge in our agricultural economy. And we're strongly promoting the restoration of large-scale ag into agroforest systems, which is a very important form of restoration of our ag lands and regenerative ag. And we believe that the breadfruit revolution is just beginning, that it will, in fact, make a serious impact here in Hawaii and in other parts of the world.
And I believe she has a follow-up.
I'm sorry, if I can follow up. I'm also speaking to restoring those lands to their native ecosystems and not just agriculture, which is also important.
So I can speak to that a little bit. We have 10 watershed partnerships around the state covering lands, particularly the highest quality lands, but also extending in areas like leeward Haleakala and leeward Oahu, and in some cases leeward sides of Hawaii Island and Kona, where there have been impacts from agricultural and ranching activities, but there's enough opportunity in terms of existing native species to be able to restore them. So, for instance, the leeward Haleakala folks have done really made great efforts forward, great progress forward in, first of all, removing the goats from those areas, because you can't grow anything unless you stop what's eating it up. And what's really remarkable in those places, even the south slope of Molokai, is once you make the conditions right for native species to recover, they are recovering in South Slope Molokai. What's coming back is Ilima, and that's kind of a surprise. I think a lot of us thought invasive species would come back. If there are a lot of grasses there, they're more likely to come back, and so you need more active management to keep it down. But there are a lot of instances in those areas where we're making substantial progress.
Thank you. Yes. That's great. That should come off, yeah. We have it short.
I'm just tall, that's all. Aloha, I'm Katie Kamalamala, University of Hawaii at Manoa. I also am subcontracted by DOFA, and I'm representing social media for International Council of Monuments and Sites. So I really appreciate everybody on the panel and all of the work that's gone in IUCN. I really appreciate Governor Ige, the 30% you're upping. Currently, my understanding is that DLNR only contains 1% of the state budget, and to attain these new goals, will there be any advocating at the legislature to get it to like 5% would be crazy, but in working in conservation in Hawaii for a quarter of the time that Chipper has, I see the needs in the staffing, and in Hawaii, we're very good at doing the best with what we have, and DLNR is essentially very good at that with the limited resources. So is with all of these new upgrades, and this is a legislator question possibly, will there be an increase in DLNR budget to achieve these goals, which a lot of people are very excited about? Because working with DLNR and DOFA, and I'm very appreciative of all the men and women that I get to engage with who are very passionate about their jobs, it would be a lot easier for them to facilitate their work if they had the same support that Governor Ige is giving to the future if the Ledge give the same type of support. So that's kind of just comments, last question.
Well, certainly we will be presenting what we believe the first step in our next biennium budget that we'll be submitting to the legislature next January. I do think that as part of that, we have been in transition because the legislature was interested in seeing more baseline general fund support explicitly for the department. So I think that does a couple things. One, it gives us the opportunity to establish permanent programs and permanent staffing that we hopefully will allow us to upgrade and provide, not so much upgrade, but provide some consistency and sustained effort with the employees, which I think is fundamentally important. And then I just will ask you to help us, because I do know that as we progress with the implementation of the plan, it's really about being able to find and hire the employees that we need to as we implement. And legislature has been very focused on ensuring that if they fund positions, that they expect that we fill them. And I think that all the agencies have been going through the process and being very focused on ensuring that as the legislature is appropriating funds, that we can find the people that we need, the professionals and the workers, to be able to implement. So we definitely will be focused on doing that, taking all the actions that we need to. The legislature had increased positions in a lot of areas that support all of the goals. And so we are working very hard to ensure that we can fill those positions.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Jeff Yamauchi, Honolulu Community College. I guess to go off the whole panel is, you think there's enough effort with the OIA rapid death going on in terms of revenue? It's pretty alarming, just the preliminary findings.
Let me start and then I'll turn it over to Suzanne because, definitely there is concern and support for responding. I think there is an acknowledgement by leaders at the federal, state, and county level about how serious the challenge of rapid ohia death is. And so there has been a tremendous effort placed. I just wanted to thank those researchers involved because I think that in a relatively short period of time, we've learned a lot about, if you think about 12 or 18 months, all we acknowledged was something was happening in the forest. I think that timeline is about right. That all we understood at that point was that something was happening in our forest, that we could see the trees dying unexplained, and that it was starting to, the numbers were starting to convince us that this was a serious problem that needed to be addressed. And within the last 12 months or so, the scientists have really been able to identify what is affecting the trees, and more importantly, has started the research to really understand how the disease is moving around from forest to forest. And so I think we've made tremendous progress. I think there is a lot more work to be done, but I think that we are beginning to get a better understanding of the things that we would want to pilot as responses as we develop a better strategy. And
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I mean, Governor, you're spot on. So just, I guess the thing that's really remarkable is how well everybody's working together and how closely. And this has been, as Governor said, a very fast development, both in identifying what's going on and in figuring out what's causing it. And so we're kind of at this back and forth stage where we have to make sure the research and the field trials and the containment efforts progress at the same time, because you don't want to go out in the field and do something that's not going to help the problem or perhaps make it worse. So the research continues to be very, very important. But at the same time, the Department of Agriculture quarantine on ohia products moving inter-island, the statewide now surveys of, aerial surveys of the progression of rapid ohia death, folks in the field that are doing containment trials, all of those working very, very closely together among different state agencies and county and federal and private and nonprofit partners has been a really encouraging effort. At the same time, it's a very serious problem. And yesterday we announced the latest round of surveys on Hawaii Island showed 47,000 acres that may have been affected by rapid ohia death. And now we have to go on the ground and verify that. So it's something we have to keep a very close eye on and try to keep it from spreading. But the fact that we've been able to make so much progress in a short period of time and work so well together, I think has been very, very encouraging so far.
I'd like to just add my voice to this, which is I was in a session at the beginning of the Congress on rapid ohia death. Ohia lehua is found in about 80% of our native forests. I was asked a question on that session about what it would be like if we lost ohia lehua. I couldn't answer that because it's so mind-boggling. It's a keystone species, and I really want to mahalo the media. I think Dan said it earlier, you play a really important role, and it was fantastic this morning to wake up and see it on the front page of the newspaper. We need to raise public awareness that this is a threshold issue for the future of Hawaiian biodiversity, terrestrial biodiversity. We need to give it our full attention, and I'm glad that we're getting that. Senator Schatz providing some money for research is critical at a very important time, but we need to keep this in front of the public. So thank you to the media for and that was a great question. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, aloha. Trang Cal from the Global Mana Foundation. And you said something very provocative. You said the breadfruit revolution. And that is, you're putting breadfruit at the center of an initiative to increase local food production and restore the lands with an agroforestry system that's traditional to Hawaii. Could you expand more on that and talk about how the plans will unfold and what sort of community involvement is required, and what sort of plans are in place in order for this breadfruit revolution to take place?
Great. Well, it's a great question, and we're really at the very leading edge of that revolution, because it's only been in recent years that we've been able to propagate breadfruit and be able to distribute it on a scale to make a difference. Thanks to the generous support of the Ceres Trust, we've been able to distribute free to communities over 10,000 breadfruit trees over the last 3 years. They're going to be coming online and beginning production in the next few years. So we're beginning to seed it, so to speak. I think what's really, really important is that we look at how do we create the infrastructure statewide to support that movement. I have not been able to verify this, but I heard in one of the sessions that Maui has created or dedicated 250 acres to regenerative ag parks. That's the kind of step that needs to be taken, so that because farmers can never compete against development on a per acre basis. So creating places where the revolution can take root and begin, and then the market will build, and it's kind of a cyclical process until there is more demand. It's hard for farmers to go out and plant it, but on the other hand, chefs can't put it on their menu if there isn't a ready supply. So we're very encouraged. Director Enright of Department of Ag has been a champion. Russell Kukoban before him, recognizing how valuable breadfruit can be to Hawaii's future for both agriculture and economy, but also food security. Very, very important.
Thank you. We have about 5 minutes. Time for a couple more questions. Yes.
One more question. My name's Sharon Williams. I'm with the University of Hawaii, but I'm here as a taxpayer asking a question. I wondered, Governor Ige, I was driving down the Alawai today and I noticed that it was very high, the water level was very high, and we all know now that sea level is supposed to rise about 1 to 2 meters. It would take only half that to block the McCully Bridge. I wondered what efforts are being made right now to convene good minds to design the necessary changes to zoning and development along the coastlines for the state.
A couple of things. I guess 2 years ago, it might be 3 years now, but the legislature had passed it and funded an interagency global warming and climate change that has been meeting and trying to map out, start with a catalog of all the different rules, policy, laws that are in place that would be affected by sea level rise. And they have been going through and meeting and talking about, first of all, starting to catalog and the policies, and then begin the conversation about what changes need to happen. So I do think on the policy side, there is an effort to look at the laws, and I think the challenge will be, as a community, I think we need to talk about how we need to change setbacks and a whole bunch of other things that clearly impact what we do today. There is efforts on the Alawai specifically, and I can maybe turn that over to Suzanne to at least give us where we're in the process. But clearly, I think if you look at the Alawai and that watershed as an example, we definitely need to begin planning to develop ways to improve the sustainability of that community, and that is in progress.
Yeah, the Army Corps of Engineers and the state have been working for some years on a plan to do. We looked initially at water quality control and ecosystem restoration, and then it morphed into essentially a flood control plan, which is very important, but it would require reinforcement along the Alawai Canal. And I think there's a lot of interest in trying to see if we can go whole system wide and try to reduce the amount of debris and sediment that's coming down the Alawai. So the stage we're at is the Army Corps is finishing their process to finalize the environmental impact statement and to try to seek federal funding through Congress for 65% matching funds for a project. And the state and the city have signed a letter of support for that with an asterisk that we want to maintain the conversation to include in the future the possibility of expanding it for ecosystem restoration benefits as well.
And I just wanted to re-announce that David Lassner in one of our other sessions had announced that he's initiated kind of a university Alawai challenge to really challenge the students to develop a better plan for Alawai and look at what changes, how we could restore as appropriate, and find different mechanisms to make the Alawai and that watershed a much more sustainable community moving forward. So I think that there's lots of, recognition of the importance of the Alawai, and I think that there are a couple of efforts to make sure that we can get plans for what we need to do that would improve resiliency, but also just restore as appropriate and make non-traditional efforts to manage the flow of water and what happens in that area.
And if I might add, the first report of the Interagency Climate Adaptation Committee deals specifically with sea level rise adaptation, and that's due to the legislature at the end of 2017. So in about 15, 16 months, I expect there'll be a lot of new information on what we're going to do about sea level rise specifically. So thank you. Maybe time for one more question, and then we'll have to vacate the room. Yes, sir. Or a couple if we make them quick. Thank you.
I'll try. I've got to kind of bend down here on this one. So Loya Mehrhoff, Center for Biological Diversity. So as most of us know, one of the greatest threats to Hawaiian biodiversity are ungulates, pigs, goats, and deer. So when can we expect a good strategy to eliminate that threat to native ecosystems and Hawaii's endangered plants, animals, et cetera? So when are we going to really kind of reconcile the hunting program with endangered species management? Thank you.
So the goal of 30% effective management of our forests by 2030 focuses in on that exactly and prioritizes. It's a matter of prioritizing based on what our resources are. There's plenty of room for hunting in appropriate areas where we either don't have the same kind of endangered species problems or can work with hunters in hunting management plans that both foster hunting opportunities and protect the individual groups of endangered species. But the overall forest management plan is to prioritize and protect by controlling invasive species, starting with invasive animals, and then also our highest priority invasive plants. And that's the plan to move that forward.
And I just would like to add that the legislature just passed last session a game management advisory commission to the chair case to really begin to get hunters involved with that process. And clearly there is a willingness on behalf of the hunting community to be part of the solution in helping us manage the areas much more sustainably. So that effort will definitely get started very soon.
Thank you. And one last question, sir. Thank you.
I just wanted to know about coral reefs and polluted water and EPA fines, and what would be a plan moving forward for sewage treatment plants and things like that.
Well, sewage treatment plants are a function of the city and county. I do know that they are under a consent decree to make improvements to the sewage treatment facilities here on Oahu. I do know that our agency in the Department of Health is very much engaged with implementation of a lot of the clean water laws from the federal government, and are engaged with trying to do a better job of managing non-point source pollution and runoff in various ways. So I know that we as a community need to do a better job. It's becoming more widely known that obviously runoff in our communities have a tremendous impact on the ocean, and definitely are looking at how we can do a better job of managing that water and making sure that it doesn't have the big impact on our reefs and nearshore waters as it has in the past.
Great. Governor Ige, Chair Case, and Vice Chair Wickman, thank you very much for your insightful comments today. And we look forward to seeing you all in the canoe as we navigate forward. Thank you very much, and aloha.
Governor, well done. Thank you. I see where your shirt is going.
I was going to say somebody gave me breadfruit ice cream, and I was very good. So somebody is working on it.